Thanks, Trace. Awesome. Hello, everyone. Morning. Happy Saturday. Thank you so much for taking the time. Thank you so much for being here. I know it's early on a Saturday morning, and thank you so much for waking up early. I know it's not easy, so I'll do my best to make it worth your while. So let's get started. So my name is Linda Liu. I'm a head of ecosystem at Oasis. And today I want to share our thoughts and vision on data DAOs and data DAOs for public good. So let's get started. So we understand how important data is. Data is a key driver for the modern economy and the critical piece for AI and machine learning. The global data economy is growing exponentially. Every day, each and every day, we just have more and more data generated. And at the same time, we're facing unprecedented challenges when it comes to using sensitive data. Like we're seeing these kind of news making headlines, like corporates, organizations, buying, selling users' data without their awareness, let alone consent. And some research has shown that individual personal data is extremely valuable. We have seen evidence by this metric, PPU, price per unit. So these, as you can see the figure here, it covers a wide spectrum from $75 to $20,000. And it's safe to assume that end users, it could be your data, is not necessarily benefiting from any of these data transactions. So the status quo where corporates and organizations sharing data without users' awareness and consent is not acceptable. It hinders societal progress, undermines human values and fundamental rights. And we need to change that. And how do we fix that? We're introducing Data DAO. So we believe Data DAO is a disruptive framework that addresses many of the challenges we talked about earlier. So what is Data DAO then? A Data DAO is a decentralized autonomous organization, so DAO, of individuals and entities that supports individual data rights, rewards data owners for data use, handles data with confidentiality and privacy, with verifiable transparency in its operations. I understand it's quite a nuanced concept. It has quite a few key components underneath, such as what is individual data rights? What do we mean by rewarding and compensating for data use? And how do we handle data with confidentiality and privacy? And what do we mean by verifiable transparency? So bear with me, just be a little bit more patient. I promise I'll unpack these components one by one very shortly. So what do we do with Data DAO? What's our goal? We create this Data DAO and to do what exactly? First, we want Data DAO to enable individual data sovereignty. This is what we meant by individual data rights. You own your own data, and you get to dictate how you want your data to be used. Second, we want data to maximize social welfare and economic efficiency. So data utility needs to go beyond individual and organizations. It needs to serve broader society, even the whole world. We need to break data silos to be able to do that. Third, we need to be able to provide incentives. This is what we meant by rewarding and compensating. There needs to be a fair distribution of values created from data to all members of Data DAO. So that covers data owners, data consumers, and any parties involved in that transaction. And the individual get rewarded and compensated for data use. Last but not least, we need to establish enforceable governance. We need to enforce individual data rights so we can prevent misuse or abuse of data and maintain audits with immutability to ensure that operation is accountable, traceable, transparent, and self-policing. Of course, we're not naive. We understand the reason data DAO haven't been so prevalent is because we still have a lot of challenges and complexity when it comes to data practices, such as it's very difficult to balance privacy with utility. It's almost as either or. in the current system versus both and. You have to choose between privacy and utility. It's very hard to have both. Second, data is non-rival, meaning when I share my data out, I can almost assume that someone is making copies of my data or taking snapshot of my data. You can never get your data back once it's already shared out. And third, data dependencies. So processed data can reveal information about original data. And if you know, let's say you have a cohort of individual data, and if you happen to know sensitive data of one individual, through some robust analysis, it's possible for you to derive sensitive information about the rest of the cohort. And last but not least, within data dependency is this data anonymization, which is a very common practice in the current data privacy space. But we understand the shortcomings of data anonymization. Even anonymized data can be re-identified via correlations. So how do data DAOs come to rescue? What are the enabled technologies required for us to solve all these challenges we just talked about? It required two enabling technologies. One is data NFT. Second is responsible data technologies. So first, let's talk about data NFT. I'm sure everyone here understands the concept of NFT, so we'll now repeat that. I don't want to bore you guys with what's NFT. But data NFT is just like NFT, but it's slightly more complex. It's a token that provides access to run computations on data and making sure the computation is compliant with data policies set by the data owners. So it covers two parts. First is access to computations. Second is making sure computation is compliant with data policies. And second is this responsible data technologies. These are the tools and platforms that enable running computations on data, maintaining data privacy, and make sure data is confidential and private while in use. And with all accesses auditable in an immutable log. I know it's quite a mouthful, but we will unpack it in a bit, very shortly. So let's talk about data NFTs first. What do we mean by, how do we create data NFTs? So it has three basic components. First is tokenization. Data DAOs will issue data-backed tokens that represent, it could be docs, it could be files, images, movies, royalties, and according to terms set by the data owners. So if you own a doc and you want to wrap it as a data NFT, you yourself will set how you want your data to be used. And second, analyze. We need to attach encrypted data as well as metadata to the tokens to keep data private and confidential while in use. Third is share within the ecosystem. These data NFT tokens need to be compatible with the ecosystem standard, so it can be shared freely, so people can send and receive as stakeholders and users wish within the data DAO. Here's one example of data NFT in the genomic space. So I trust quite a few people here have heard of this famous professor, Professor George Church from Harvard. Professor George Church is the founding father of genome sequencing, and he actually minted his fully sequenced genome as NFT last year. This is actually kind of pretty exciting. So this is a kind of big milestone in the industry. This is the very first data NFT for genomic data, and the sequenced genome is stored and protected by the Oasis network as well as technology. So it's kind of very, very exciting. So let's go back to the second enabling technology, responsible data technologies. So it has four major components. First is secure compute. So that covers secure hardware compute, such as Intel SGX, and secure multi-party compute, full homomorphic encryption. These technologies allows you to keep data confidential and private while in use by any applications or services. Second is differential privacy. So these solve the challenges we talked about earlier around data dependencies. Like if you know one individual sensitive data, like through some analysis, you'll be able to derive sensitive information about the rest cohort. So differential privacy will be able to solve that problem. It ensures computation output won't leak sensitive information about individuals. The third is federated learning. So this is getting common in the AI and machine learning space. It ensures data never transported or copied with AI machine learning model. So data gets to be trained in distributed manner. Data gets to stay where it is. Last but not least is what we meant by verifiable transparency. This is distributed ledger. I'm sure everyone is very familiar with this concept. This is where blockchain comes in. It provides an immutable log to ensure data usage is compliant and traceable, trackable, and transparent. So putting it all together, we want to help people visualize what does data DAO look like from architecture perspective. So data DAO does require a few critical services, such as smart contracts, which run on blockchain network, such as Oasis network. It also requires distributed secure compute, distributed confidential storage. So let's unpack this a little bit with a user flow. First, let's say yourself is a user of data DAO. You want to upload your data to a data DAO, and the data needs to store encrypted. So you will need this distributed key manager, which will issue keys to you. At the same time, you will need to stipulate how you want your data to be used. So this is where we have the policy checker. It checks any sort of computation request, either from the data DAO or from data DAO's partners, any service partners, against the data policy set by the data owners, such as yourself. And once the policy checker gives a thumb up or green light, it means this computation request can be entertained. Then data DAO will initiate these credentialed prescriptive computation services, such as federated learning or differential privacy queries on the data. And then the smart contract run on a blockchain network will be able to mint the NFTs and allow tokens to be freely transferred on the network. At the same time, we implement incentives and governance on-chain to make sure it's enforceable. So we talk a lot about this data DAO. So on the high level, we want to make sure it covers these three basic capabilities. First, it needs to be able to tokenize. We created NFTs from data shared by data owners, could be individuals, could be entities, and make them available in a data marketplace. So the data transaction we'll talk about in the earlier slides, those will be backed by data NFTs. Data consumers will need to buy NFT to be able to acquire the underlying data. Second is compute. These will require responsible data technology such as secure hardware compute, differential privacy, federated learning, to make sure computation enable data to be private and confidential while in use. And last but not least, governance. We need to provide governance and incentive model to make sure there's a fair value distribution among stakeholders within the data DAO. So it's not just about value transferred from corporates to data consumers to corporates. Data owners need to be involved as well. There needs to be fair value distribution among all stakeholders. So let's take a look how data DAO looks like in action. Say you're an individual and you register service with this data DAO, and you upload your data and you set your user policy. And on the other side of data DAO, you have this, let's say, medical research organization who could use or benefit a lot from individual data, more like a cohort of individual data. So they will do some search in the data catalog, which is maintained by the data DAO. They will run some search and find relevant data for their research. And then they will put together cohorts of individuals they want to do more analysis of. And that would require the research organization to buy data NFTs of underlying individuals. And then we still have the policy checker. Once the policy checker gives the green light, the research organization will be able to schedule compute and analysis. And then data DAO will initiate these computational compute on the underlying data and then pay individuals for data use. So this flow, end-to-end, will enable individual data sovereignty, and we break data silos, so data gets to be shared across multiple partners, and we enforce security and privacy protection end-to-end throughout the process. So we talk a lot about data DAO in a very abstract way. I want to share a real-world use case by featuring one of our enterprise partners, Genetica. Genetica is one of the biggest genomic company in the APAC region, Asia-Pacific region. And they grew their users from 2,500 a couple years ago to 100,000 recently. And they also have an extensive network of partners, such as research, cooperative hospital partners, who could really benefit using some individual data to do more analysis out of. So how does Genetica manage to share those data with those research partners while honoring individual data rights? They are building data DAOs on the Oasis network. So how does it work? Let's say you're a customer of Genetica, register their service, and you submit your saliva sample, and that sample is sent to a lab to run full genome sequencing. And the DAO will be able to transfer the full ownership of your full genome sequence data back to you via data NFT. And let's say a medical research partner will want to study a cohort on individual genome sequencing data, then they will need to buy those data NFTs and run computation out of it. The whole process end-to-end, we manage to make sure that data stays private and confidential throughout the process. So here's how Genetica grows over the past couple years. Till end of last year, they migrate 20,000 genetic profiles to the Oasis network. And they are very much on track to bring 100,000 genetic profiles to this crypto genetic economy via data DAOs. So yeah, so we talk about data DAOs, and we do believe data DAO is for public good, especially in the healthcare sector as well as other sectors. It breaks data silos, improves patient data portability, enable geo and demographic diversity in clinical trial, which is required by regulations. And beyond just about sensitive data, data DAO can also involve non-sensitive data. So more people contribute data to data DAO will allow better AI and machine learning model training, and more users contribute to data DAO with their data, they can create better knowledge graph potentially. And we understand how important knowledge graph it is to bring AI and machine learning to the next level. So to quickly wrap up, we understand over the next decade is a golden time to build data DAOs. You will have significant impact on society as well as the quality of life. Data DAOs enable individual data rights, enforce privacy protection, break data silos, and provide fair compensation to individuals as well as entities for the betterment of societies. And here at Oasis, we recently rolled out $200 million ecosystem fund. And one of the categories we specifically target is data DAOs. So entrepreneurs, builders, founders, teams out there, if you share this vision, if you want to build a better data economy, please apply for this ecosystem fund. We also have grants program to support that. And I want to end my presentation by sharing one of my favorite quotes from William Gibson. The future is already here. It's just not even distributed yet. We believe the enabling technology for data DAO are here. Those technologies, such as data NFTs, as well as responsive technologies, are pretty much available for us to use. The reason it hasn't been even distributed yet is because we need more people, more builders, more developers, entrepreneurs, teams out there. If you share this vision, if you want to build a better, more responsible data economy, please join us. Please join Oasis. Please build data DAOs, build better economy, data economy together with us. Thank you so much. Have a nice weekend, guys.